Well, hello, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Julia King. I'm a contributing editor here at CIO, and I'm thrilled to have with us today Jay Upchurch. Jay is Executive VP and CIO at SAS. Hi, Jay. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
Great to have you. Well, we're here to talk about the future of work and AI and how you're organizing teams and what you're seeing with your customers and partners at SAS vis-a-vis AI. So I'm going to dig right in here. And let's start with something that you had said during our background interview when you talked about generative AI being a wonderful science experiment that requires establishing proper guardrails without stifling creativity. I thought that was just a great way to describe the technology and what's going on right now. So tell us a little more about your thinking on that, what you mean, and how you're approaching that at SAS.
Sure. So maybe as a foundation, just real quick, generative AI, one of many types of artificial intelligence. When you think about the artificial intelligence landscape that's out there, generative AI has caught everyone's attention since the public announcement of ChatGPT back in, I guess it was now November of 2022. Hard to believe it's just been over a year given how much widespread adoption and I'll say public curiosity there has been about generative AI. But again, it's probably one of the fastest growing technologies ever in the history that I've been aware of. Interesting about generative AI is that it was originally launched at more the consumer and as opposed to the business user. And so what's happened now is that curiosity has just gone like wildfire everywhere, both in personal and professional lives. And so for us, as we think about artificial intelligence and wanting to drive, an artificial intelligence-based business for competitive advantage, both for our customers and ourselves, and then all of a sudden generative comes in, we think about, okay, how do we do that in a way that is protective of your corporation, but still empowers the employee and the curiosity employee, which ultimately is the single greatest intellectual property, if you will, that any company has. So that's always been the challenge. I think the industry is struggling with it.
Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit more about guardrails.
So let's talk about generative for a second. From a generative AI standpoint, it starts with the data. You've got to have a lot of data for a large language model to be effective. If the data set is too small, its ability to predict a creative answer to the problem that you're asking it is going to be limited. And so the exposure, the risk, the security risk primarily of the guardrail is really important. So if you don't have guardrails in place that protect your data, your intellectual property, maybe a PII data that you might be sharing or anything along those lines from a company, confidential data for that matter, you can perhaps expose that to a large language model that is out in the public domain. And at that point, you might have internal users that have well-intended intentions, but they're suddenly sharing confidential data that ultimately gets used later on in the public space. Again, because you're unaware of where that data goes in the large language model and who's accessing it and then how it extracts value from that in the future. So when I think about guardrails, it's all about protecting the company first. At SAS, the Chief Information Security Office happens to sit in our IT shop. And so, security is always top of mind in every action we take, both for ourselves and our customers. And so when we started talking about generative and the adoption of generative AI across our enterprise, the very first thing we came back to was, okay, how do we establish safeguard rails, but don't, to your point at the opening, don't do it in a way that restricts the creativity that is so unique about our employees here at SAS.
Well, you had mentioned that in terms of the speed with which the technology is taking hold just between November of 2022 and now, the vast growth, which I would imagine makes establishing those guardrails and sustaining curiosity a challenge. But it also much more tightly entwines IT strategy and business strategy. I think you mentioned that yourself. And as using AI as a primary means to achieve new business goals. So I know you are using business relationship managers, you've established a model that works well for that melding of AI, of business and IT strategy, and you're doing it with business relationship managers. So how does that model work? How does it work well with AI? And perhaps you can give us an example or two of some of the things that you're doing with AI where you're using business relationship managers embedded in the business.
Yeah, so this is a topic I'm very passionate about, and I'm proud of how we're operating at SAS. Traditional IT, I should say, was generally viewed in the industry as, hey, yeah, that's a roadblock, right? IT shows up inside of a company and says, these are all the reasons and the rules that you have to follow. And sometimes that's viewed as an impediment to progress from some of the divisions that we provide service to. What we do at SAS is a little different. We really want to make sure that we're bringing technology, automation, advanced analytics, and especially artificial intelligence to our business users to help them operate more efficiently, more effectively, and frankly, gain a competitive advantage through the speed of our decision-making process. And in doing so, we want to make sure that we embrace where our businesses are going, what they need. And that can be legal, finance, HR, any of the business units across our company. And so we deploy a business relationship manager, BRM for short, to our partners. And these are our peers, some of our best and brightest consultants in IT. And they peer up with our C-level executives. And they walk the walk and talk the talk of each of those divisions. They want to understand what they're doing and what their goals are, what their struggles are. And the idea is to not only have empathy to what the divisions are working on, but to help shape the demand back for technology to enable that business to reach their goals. And that's empowered IT to really be able to show up in a very different way. We're no longer viewed as an impediment to progress. We're actually viewed as an accelerant to progress. We're able to help them achieve their goals faster. With generative, it was even more important to have that relationship. And the reason why, again, going back to how, like ChatGPT as an example, was announced to the world, the curiosity was amazing. Like it raised the collective social awareness of what artificial intelligence is. And so naturally people got curious about it, especially here at SAS where curiosity is in our DNA. That is our code in a lot of ways. It's something that we're very proud of. And it was really important for us to show up and say, okay, I know you're curious. Let's talk about what you want to do with it. What are those use cases and how can we help? Not as an impediment, but actually more as an accelerant. How do we power that? And so there are plenty of peers in the industry that I know that had a different reaction. They might have put up firewalls and blocked, the access for generative technologies coming in, outside and in and vice versa. In that case, you're stifling that curiosity, right? You're really saying, you're not allowed to do anything. Now I'm in the impediment. What we did was a little different. We, again, relied on that BRM relationship. And we showed up and said, let us help you. Let us show you a kickstart, a jump start, if you will, for how this will work. Let's bring tools to bear. Let's bring patterns that we know to work. And then let's allow you to jump past the security concerns and, what tools do I use and where and how do I apply them? And instead really just focus in on the business problem at hand. And if you think about it, you kind of get down to the gist of what IT is all about. That's exactly it. There's a business partner. We're there to provide a service. We want to do that in an empathetic way. And we want to empower them to achieve success faster with our help than without. And so when generative, what we saw there was, sure, we had to put it into place an acceptable use policy. We had to talk to people and do a little bit of education and training. But the biggest benefit is showing up and showing and talking to them about how to go do it. So we're enabling them to do. So that's really the gist of what we're doing with the business relationship manager. And again, I think to your question, it was more important than ever with generative because, again, the stakes were high.
Well, I have two questions here. It sounds like that in itself, that role requires a much more intimate knowledge of the business itself. I know years ago we talked about IT professionals being IT plus. They knew IT and a business process intimately, whether that was finance, HR, et cetera. So I'm curious for you to talk about that a little bit. And also, can you give us an example of how you've used the BRM model with AI and tell us how it went?
Yeah, so I love the question because even sometimes people ask me, well, what's your role? And I'll tell them I'm CIO plus. And then the plus is, yes, I run internal IT for the organization globally, but I also have business responsibilities. I'm in charge of our commercial SaaS cloud business and operations. So I'm close to our customers and how they run and utilize our software and our solutions. I think if you're not participating in the business, I think your ability to influence and change and impact the company is going to be greatly diminished. You've got to be there. The modern CIO today is sitting at the business roundtable. They're a part of the leadership team. They're influencing the strategy of the company. They're helping to introduce in new products and services and revenue streams through the use of technology. I think generative and frankly all forms of AI can give companies a competitive advantage when deployed the right way. And it does take a technician that can connect the business goals with the technology purpose and make that, again, a competitive advantage for the company. So I love the fact that in our IT shop, we've got 1,000 employees worldwide that are highly in tune with our business and our customers. So understanding that our customers are doing with our software, how they're using it, how they're deploying it, the impact that it has to them, the impact if it was ever and the service interruption, it is technology. So things happen. We know that how we respond to that. That's all part and parcel of being in tune with the business, as opposed to I'm just writing some code and it's going off into somewhere and we assume it'll work. So just having intimacy, I think, with the business is really, really important. As an example, on the VRM front, especially like around artificial intelligence, some things we're doing right now with generative as an example is looking for use cases in partnership with our business partners that are applicable to generative, that do it in a safe way and show, I'm going to say, good return on that effort and energy. As an example, there are highly repetitive tasks that every company has to do. A very generic one would be in sales. Every company on the planet has to respond to RFPs and RFIs, and there's just not a lot of sexiness around that task. Every RFP or RFI is going to have some set of questions that are always the same. Wonderful way to load your responses into a large language model. Allow generative you could feed it the RFP and allow it to answer those questions and propose the answers based on past answers. You can also allow it to score and decide, hey, I won this one, I lost this one. Are there ways to change the answer up in a more creative way? And that's going to jumpstart, again, the output, the answer. It's not to say that, hey, it's final or hit send. You're still going to have a human in the loop to review the results, of course. But imagine the impact that it has on the employee base. Now, instead of having an employee who looks at it and says, oh, I've got to describe, again, where SaaS is based and the demographics of it, and because the RFP is asking a very rudimentary question, now instead, let the technology do it. It'll answer it for you. It might even answer it more creatively and better than we ever could have imagined on our own. And so it frees that employee base up now to do more valuable things with their time. Again, it raises the quality of that submission and allows the employee to do more with their time. Perhaps it allows more throughput with the investment that we have in our labor base and that particular business service. So the benefits there are fantastic. I know that's a very trivial example, but we are constantly finding incredible excitement across all of our divisions for places where artificial intelligence, generative or not, can be applied to help again give us a competitive advantage.
Well, we've seen a lot of headlines about just that, exactly what you explained, a lot of curiosity, a lot of excitement, also a lot of fear and loathing on the part of employees. I'm going to be displaced. AI is going to, obviate my job. And which makes me wonder if there's a way that we can, or that you think about preparing your workforce for AI and for the implementation of AI, and how that will work with their current employment. Is there an ideal way to prepare or to, I want to say, basically assure workers about AI and where they'll fit in? Should executives and other business leaders be thinking about this? Is this a part of the adoption process?
It definitely is part of the adoption process. I mean, we are and should always be mindful of the mindset and morale of our employees. That's number one. So I do think if there's uncertainty or doubt from an employee or employee base or a group, we've got to make sure that we're talking to them and training them on the technology and what it will mean to them. I think when people ask me that question, especially around generative AI, displacement of jobs or roles, I kind of take a step back and I think about technology adoption and over history. And if you think back to cloud computing as an example, it was going to replace a whole bunch of jobs. It did. It changed the way we worked, of course, but it's not. In my case, I run data centers and I have great relationships with a number of public cloud providers. It didn't mean that I needed less or more network engineers or storage engineers or OS engineers. Sure, I wasn't racking and stacking servers as much as I used to, but I freed up that time for our employees to do other and frankly more meaningful work. So it didn't replace it. You go down the line, virtualization for machines, right? VMs and how that worked. Obviously your mobile devices, just keep going down the line on any kind of widespread technology adoption. There was always that concern of, is that going to displace or replace an employee or a function? In general, it doesn't. It allows us to drive more productivity gains through that investment in labor that we have. So that's where I usually come back to. I think the other thing too that's out there on generative that people are worried about in artificial intelligence in general is the quality of the response that's coming back. Because in generative, it is a creative answer. So you've got to validate it. You got to trust and verify. So we always talk about a human in the loop. So humans won't be taken out of that loop unless you're willing to take the risk of perhaps having an incorrect answer or response, or infringing on trademark and copyright and other things, because there's no assurance guardrail there. So that I believe that they're always going to be involved in that case. So I know that there's fear, uncertainty, and doubt out there. I do know that there are a lot of efforts going in to make things more resilient. In SaaS's case and our own software, again, our platforms specific for artificial intelligence, we worry a lot about ethical use, and we want to make sure that there's transparency in data and lineage, and ultimately the decision, the recommendation that it gives. So we are showing that all the time. So those types of advancements across the industry are always going to continue to come, and I'm sure that generative will continue to get better. But I don't see it widely displacing roles or jobs.
Well, at the other end of the spectrum, we have the fear and uncertainty and doubt about shadow AI and what's happening there. I think Gartner, I have a figure here, indicates 41% of employees acquired, modified, or created technology outside of IT's visibility in 2022, and that number was expected to climb to 75% in 2027. I think we're talking about the guardrails here again. What's your take on shadow AI, and what guidance do you have perhaps for other CIOs and about how to address that issue while being sure not to stifle that creativity?
Yeah, there's not a CIO listening out there that isn't rolling their eyes right now at the term shadow technology or shadow IT for that matter. So, just to level set, right? Shadow technology or IT, right, is always any type of technology that's running in your enterprise or your corporation that was kind of unauthorized or perhaps done outside the purview of your corporate IT kind of shared services function. Everybody's got it. I'll repeat that again. Everybody's got it. Even if you don't know about it, you have it. It's there. So there are different approaches to this, right? There are plenty of IT leaders that are a little heavier handed and say, that's not allowed. You got to come to me. Again, I'm impeding your progress there by forcing it to come to my shop. Others, this is kind of more the way that I lean. I kind of kill my business partners with kindness. I want to prove to them that I can do that job better and frankly cheaper because I'm a shared service function as opposed to asking them to fund it and do it themselves. And also when you come and ask the central IT organization to do it, you get all the enterprise capability and standards and security that comes along with that. So my job there is hopefully to entice them to want to get that service from my shop as opposed to their idea they're doing it on their own. I think shadow AI is fascinating because it is still shadow IT, except for the stakes of the game are increased. It's even more riskier because of the nature of AI. As I was saying before, much larger data loads, right? The output of those workloads can become basically viewed as truth sometimes when it's erroneous if not done well. And then again, the aspect of where that runs and the ease at which you can run generative AI outside of your enterprise and get back a result and unknowingly dump confidential data out into the public is a real risk. So I think all CIOs around the world have to be worried about shadow AI much more so than general shadow IT. And again, I think you got to decide what's your right path. And I would tell my peers there that says, show up with help, right? Know that your business partners are going to do this on their own. And if you ignore it, they're going to do it without you. That's the shadow part. But if you go in a partnering way and an empathetic way for what they need as a business leader, I think you can help them gain more and you can learn along the way. The rate of adoption of generative AI is, like I said, unprecedented in our history. All IT should want to participate in that. We're going to learn just as fast as the world around us. And along the way, if we can empower our business users, we all. So I would say embrace it, know it's there, partner, and then show up with tools and technology and techniques that help you enable that success.
Well, finally, I want to ask a question, throwing your predictions forward here, or looking at the year ahead. We're at the beginning of a brand new year. What are your thoughts about how AI will change the work of IT this year, 2024?
I think it's going to be on everybody's top three. There's no doubt about it. Now, not just generative, but AI in general. I think that when ChatGPT was launched, like I said before, it just raised the collective social awareness of what artificial intelligence is and what it's capable of. I think we in our personal lives are starting to participate in it, whether or not we knowingly do it ourselves, seek it out, or some of the services that we interact with are delivering it under the hood and we're unaware of it. I think on the business front, competition is so high that we are all looking for that extra advantage. And the promise of what artificial intelligence can be and also what generative can be is so great that we are all attracted to it. And so every CIO is going to have that out there as one of their top three initiatives. I'm concerned that there are too many out there that are going to shut that initiative down out of concerns around, like you were saying, security, ethical use, and other things. I am confident that as an industry, we will continue to solve those problems. So my encouragement to my peers would be participate, right? Go into it with an open mind. Know that it's going to happen with or without you. Again, the shadow aspect of it will come up. So that's kind of my number one thing I think right now for my peers. And I'm actively listening to what they're doing too and learning from them just as much as hopefully they are from us. I think the other one I would say is, and this is something that we believe deeply at SAS, is having a common set of tools that meets your business needs, again, as that kind of jumpstart to how you go quicker, is really, really important. So again, back on the side that I deal with on our customers, right? SAS offers VIA, which is a large advanced analytics platform. You can do what you want to do with it. It's purpose-built for data scientists. And so having a general tool that your enterprise can use as an enterprise-wide strategy is really, really important. So that way your users and your business partners, they're not asking, well, where do I start? Instead, you're showing up with answers and you're spending more of your time in that creative thought of how and what benefit will it bring, and then how do we get you there faster, right? But if you do that, suddenly, again, you've got a seat at the business table with your business partners, and you're viewed as the reason for success, not the impediment for progress.
Well, Jay, thank you so much for your insights today. It's been great talking with you, and I wish you the very best. It's exciting times.
It is an incredibly exciting time. Love my job. It's definitely stressful and difficult sometimes to keep up with, but for all of us in the industry right now, incredibly exciting. The disruption is very real, but man, it gets you out of bed every day. So thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today, and everybody out there, good luck with your AI aspirations in 2024.
Thanks again.